I always heard that asking about Grandpa was forbidden. The moment I uttered the word grandfather, Dad would snap. His eyes darkened, his jaw clenched, and every time I heard the same thing. He's no longer part of this family. Period. I only saw Grandpa twice as a child. I was too young to remember much, just fragments. The smell of charred meat, smoke curling from his pipe bowl, and a silence that clung to the air like wet wool. The only thing I recall clearly is how enormous he seemed whenever he visited. Or maybe I was just too small. Mom would pull me away quick and firm. When I turned 18 and moved to the city for college, I found myself digging through Dad's old things during a rare quiet moment. Among bills and expired driver's licenses, I discovered a yellowed envelope. Inside was a crumpled letter sent from a town called Lauderdale, a speck on the map 2 hours north. The return address read, George and Marilyn Otter. At first, the names meant nothing, but George brought back the smell of smoke. Looking back now, I don't know why I went there, but I've always been curious, and something pulled me toward that place. Forbidden fruit is sweet, right? So during break, I decided to meet my grandfather. I rehearsed questions, why he and Dad were estranged, what happened, but none of it would matter. Lauderdale was smaller than any town I'd seen. One gas station, one diner, one grocery store, and houses scattered along winding roads like fallen teeth. The last stretch from the bus stop, I walked. At the end of a gravel path framed by bare trees and silence stood a red wooden house. He opened the door before I could knock. "Good Lord Almighty!" he boomed, grinning wide with crooked teeth. "Look who it is, my favorite grandson. God, it's good to see ya." Grandpa was massive. His frame barely fit the doorway. He wore a brown flannel shirt stretched over his gut, the collar stained, a thick pipe seemingly fused to his lips. His hug knocked the air out of me. Behind him stood Grandma. Her hair was neatly pinned, her sweater hanging loose, as if years of worry had whittled her down to bone. Her eyes met mine and didn't match her smile. They said, "What have you done?" Grandpa ushered me inside, clapping my back so hard I stumbled. The house smelled of smoke, meat, and something coppery brown. The furniture was old but sturdy, the kind that outlives generations. He gave me a tour, laughing and gesturing wildly, and I sat with them in the living room, dark from heavy curtains. Grandma brought me tea with trembling hands. The first few days were tolerable. Grandpa joked, smoked non-stop, and taught me wood carving. He told stories to neighborhood kids who trickled in after school, 2 or 3 at a time. He was what people call the life of the party, and he really was. I don't know how to explain it, but Grandpa had this magnetism, people just gravitated toward him. He was kind, genuine, funny. His life stories were fascinating, and he clearly loved the attention, his pipe never leaving his mouth. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing. His appetite. He ate constantly. Bacon by the pound, bread by the loaf, pies in single sittings. Once I watched him devour an entire rotisserie chicken and a pan of cornbread before dinner. He chewed loudly, wheezing, sweating, never stopping. Plates piled around him like building blocks. Yet he always wanted more, licking plates, sucking grease from his fingers, gulping tea by the liter, nearly choking on it. Grandma brought out plates piled with pork chops, sausages, whole chickens, gravy boats the size of bowls, and he inhaled it all, groaning with pleasure. His face gleamed with grease. He didn't chew so much as engulf, as if tasting was optional. "You always eat like this?" I asked, half joking. He grunted around his pipe and patted his belly. Big man needs big meals. I figured he just needed a lot of food, but not this much. All day he only ate and smoked, barely able from his chair, just sitting in the kitchen, waiting for the next massive meal. Hell, I don't think I've eaten as much in my life as he did in one dinner. Still, evenings with him were fun, until the hunger returned. One night, Grandma caught me alone in the hall while Grandpa snored like a bear in the next room. "You need to leave," she whispered, her face pale, lips cracked. "While he's asleep, tomorrow, first thing." "But why?" She flinched at the sound of heavy footsteps. Grandpa emerged from the shadows, pipe smoldering, eyes unreadable. "Everything all right?" Just telling him about my childhood, Grandma answered too quickly. Grandpa stared at us in silence, and for the first time I felt afraid. The only light was his burning pipe, the only sound his labored breathing. He filled the hallway, his bulk swallowing the space. "This house has many stories," he finally rumbled before retreating to bed. I barely slept that night, between Grandpa's snoring and the dread gnawing at me. Leave in a hurry? But why? By morning the fridge was empty. Grandpa sat at the table, licking his lips, breathing hard. "Where's that woman gotten to? Starvin' over here." Grandma returned with 3 bulging grocery bags and frantically unpacked them, cooking while Grandpa fidgeted, growling incoherently. I claimed I wasn't hungry, a lie. Watching him eat, devouring even the gristle, made me nauseous. Instead, I went to the store, chewing on Grandma's warning. Something about this was starting to scare me, especially one thought. How does he eat so much? At his age, that obese, chain-smoking, how was his heart still beating? At the store, the clerk and a woman were whispering, tense, glancing at the windows. "Ben's lost another pig," the woman muttered. "Sixth one." "Coyote, bear?" the clerk asked vaguely. "When's the last time you saw a coyote, let alone a bear, around here?" Sorry," I cut in awkwardly. "Animals are disappearing?" "You new here, kid?" The woman sighed, recalling something grim. "First pigs, then goats, chickens. Even dogs. What's left is just bones, gnawed, split open. Like something sucked out the brains. But no one's seen an animal do it. No tracks, no blood. Suddenly I couldn't breathe. I was drenched in sweat. They didn't know what could do this. But I might. And Grandpa, he still laughed, smoked, told stories. Evenings he'd call me to the porch, where kids gathered like moths to his booming voice. One older girl, maybe 10, sat at his feet and asked, "Mr. Arter, are you ever scared?" He looked at her and smiled slowly. "Only when the meat runs out," he said, laughing like it was a joke. The kids laughed too. I didn't. When I asked about the missing animals, Grandpa just chuckled through a mouthful of stew. Wild times, huh? Makes me feel young again. He played cards with me and the kids. Everyone adored him. But I grew uneasy around his bloated body, his yellow teeth grinning through smoke as he launched into another story. Too good, too vivid, too scary. The kids leaned in, wide-eyed, while Grandpa basked in their attention, until Grandma, shaking, announced, "We're out of food. Nothing left. No meat, no eggs, not even flour. We can't." "Find more," Grandpa growled, pupils shrinking to pins. "I'm starving." He didn't move from his chair. Even when we went to bed, he stayed in the kitchen. Around 3 a.m., I woke up thirsty and flicked on the kitchen light, then nearly had a heart attack. Grandpa was still in his chair, trembling, staring at the same spot. His skin was pale, almost translucent, veins purple beneath. His pipe was gone. For the first time, I saw him without it, and that alone made me want to crawl into a corner. At first, I thought he was dead, but then he shook harder, sweat beading on his forehead. "Grandpa, you okay?" I whispered. "Get me food, boy." His voice held no trace of the man I'd known. No warmth, just threat, something not human. "I'll go to the store in the morning." "Just sleep, Grandpa. Get me food." He didn't look up. I edged past him, turning off the light. All night, strange sounds came from below. Growls, wet slithering, the front door creaking. At dawn, Grandpa was gone, the door ajar. Grandma stood behind me, eyes red with fury and regret. "Go, grandson, now. He won't be satisfied with store food. Pack your things and leave." "But what's wrong with Grandpa? How can he eat so much?" "You don't want to know what happens when he stops eating." She turned to leave, but froze at my next question. "Why do you stay with him? If no one controls him, it gets much worse." That morning, the town buzzed with news. A boy had vanished overnight. Only bones were found, cleaned, not a scrap of meat left. No animal could have done that, and I knew exactly what could. I returned to the house. Grandpa sat on the porch, pipe in teeth, smoke wreathing his head. His shirt was stained, worse than usual. He stared into nothing. "Boy," he rasped, voice thick with smoke, "fetch me something from the store." Something was off that morning, his posture too rigid, eyes glassy, lips cracked. skin pale and swollen like raw meat. I mumbled an excuse and went to pack. Then I heard them arguing. "The kids are coming tonight," he snarled. "They want stories." "No," Grandma said, "not this time. I'll call the police. You won't do shit." Then she screamed, not in fear, but rage. "I won't let you feed on them again." I backed away. I didn't want to know what that meant. Didn't want to see more. Dusk fell too fast. The kids arrived on foot, alone, drawn like moths. George waited on the porch, bloated, sweating, unable to rise. Blisters covered his hands. His jaw, elongated, he still smiled, but not like before. Something inside him was pushing out. Grandma begged them to leave. "You don't understand," she wept. "This isn't a game. Go home." "Please, Mrs. Arter, just one story," the kids pleaded. "Get out, now," she hissed. "Let him be." Grandpa's voice growled from behind, making everyone jump. "Kids want stories." He shut the door after them. Grandpa swelled, grotesquely. Glassy-eyed, he stared at them, his pipe forgotten. He didn't speak, couldn't stand. The kids giggled nervously in a semicircle. I watched, helpless, knowing something terrible was coming. "Mr. Arter," one child said, "don't tell our parents we came, okay? They've banned us from going out. But we need your stories." "I won't." "Tell?" Grandpa gasped, clutching his chest. "Don't tell." Then I saw it, his shirt ripping, hands swelling, mouth unhinging wider than possible. He collapsed from his chair onto all fours. The kids screamed, so did I. His arms melted, fat dripping like candle wax. His distended belly dragged on the floor. Blisters erupted across his skin. God help me, his face slid into a wet, jagged grin of meat and fangs. Grandma stepped between him and the kids, gripping a fireplace poker, her eyes darting to me. "Run." "No more, George," she said. "If you want meat, take me." He didn't hesitate. One swift motion, her head vanished into his maw. The kids rushed the door, but it was locked. They pounded, shrieking. I stood frozen, praying this wasn't real. But it was. Grandpa, now a slithering mountain of hunger, gurgled, hissed, and dragged his bulk toward the children. I wish I could say I helped, but I couldn't. I vomited at the sounds, couldn't even look. Finally I moved, bolting to the attic, hot hammering. I stayed there, shaking, gasping, as the house filled with the sounds of slaughter. Chewing, crunching bones, one voice. Then another, then silence, sniffing, scratching. Something huge lumbered down the hall, snuffling, muttering. I pressed into the rafters, too afraid to cry. Hours stretched into centuries. Then a wet, slurping voice. "Boy, come back. Feed your grandpa. I smell you." I buried myself in dust and shadows, praying to disappear. I stayed until the silence returned and dawn crept in. I crept downstairs, stepping over bones and blood. Grandpa was gone. Only a greasy stain remained where he'd fallen. The house reeked of death. I vomited down my pants. Then I ran until the road turned to asphalt. Didn't stop, even at headlights. I told no one, not the police, not the townsfolk. I don't know what happened after. Where Grandpa went. I returned home. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I vomited, cried, had nightmares of that night. Months later at breakfast, I met Dad's eyes and asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" He stared into his coffee. "I hoped you'd never go there," he said softly. "You weren't supposed to know that address. Guess blood calls to blood. What does that mean?" He looked up, eyes bitter. "You're not my son." Silence fell like snow. You are my son. I raised you. I love you. "But you're not mine. George brought you as a baby. Said he found you by the river. I didn't ask. Didn't want to know. But your real parents. What happened to them?" He swallowed. "George got hungry. That's all you need to know. And you, how did you live with him?" "We moved town to town, keeping him fed. But it was never enough. When I was 16, we settled in Lowdell. A month later, he brought you. I escaped with you. He stayed for 18 years. Now I live with that truth, try to forget. But some nights I wake tasting ash and smoke. I hear news reports, missing animals, missing people. I lock the windows. The guilt eats me alive. Those kids I knew. I could have stopped it. Could have spoken up, but I was scared. And that, like the nightmares, will haunt me forever.